Button being pushed. Oh, okay,
Welcome
button being
back to
pushed.
Unfiltered Vet Discussions today. I'm joined by Jenny and David. And you can also find us on unfilteredvetdiscussions.com, various social media platforms, and podcasting streaming channels. So come join us and click all the buttons. We'd love that. Thank you. So today, we were just previously recording about like Legos and branding and things like that. And out of our wandering discussions before we pushed recording, Jenny had a question for David. So Jenny, what's the question?
So the reason for this question is because
Mm.
in our conversation about Legos, we learned that David got a new Lego for Christmas, and it has to do with the Antarctic exploration and Shackleton. And I want to know why that matters to you so much.
So Sir Ernest Shackleton, and that's his picture back here, um, the Antarctic explorer. And I encountered part of my background. I was a field biologist, and I spent 2 summers in the Antarctic doing penguin research for someone else. I was just a field biologist.
I don't think you
But
can say just a field biologist. You were playing with penguins
I
in
was a field
Antarctica.
biologist.
That's right.
One of the many things in my past, a lot of adventures. And while I was there, I read about a lot of the Antarctic explorers. So Sir Douglas Mawson from Australia, Robert Falcon Scott, Amundsen, Shackleton. And Shackleton became one of my heroes. And for those that don't know, separate from Amundsen and Scott and the race to the pole, and then Scott not surviving, one of the things after the race to the pole was over, Shackleton was going to take a crew down, an expedition, and go all the way across the Antarctic. So they were going to start in the Weddell Sea and then go to the pole and then off to the other side. On their way down on the HMS Endurance, which was the name of the ship, they got stuck in the ice. And then they got unstuck and then they got stuck and they overwintered on the ship. So through the South Pole night in the winter, they lived on the ship stuck in the ice. And started then in the spring to try to go again, got further stuck, and then the ice crushed the ship and sank it. And it was only just found last year. They found the Endurance, and it's now a protected site, and because its condition's pretty amazing. For the next almost year, they lived on the ice. Shackleton was the leader of all of these and moved across the ice, and the ice rotates. They eventually, hauling their 3 lifeboats, they eventually were able to get to Elephant Island, where they flipped the boats and lived underneath them. But nobody knew where they were because there's no communication, there's no Wi-Fi, right?
Right.
Their polar gear was fur that was molting. I mean, the fur was coming off, and they're trying to eat and survive and live. He got in, took one of the lifeboats, the Sir James Caird, and crossed the Drake Passage in this little boat that's like 20 feet long with 2 others, landed on Georgia, South Georgia Island in the Shetlands. The 3 of them hiked up and over the mountain, coming down in Grytviken, and they did that in just a day or two. It was about 2 years later they showed up, and I'm skipping huge amounts of things. But then several months after that, they were able to get a ship to go back to Elephant Island, pick everyone up, and everyone was rescued. No one died.
Whoa.
The only person that got injured was the stowaway who broke their, I think, leg or ankle. I haven't read it in the story in a few years. But the leadership, passion, and the characters in it, Frank Hurley was a photographer, and just it's a profound story. Shackleton had many other adventures after that. He's actually buried outside Grytviken, which I'm hoping to get to in the next year or two. But just that kind of facing the adversity, leading the team, dealing with like a veterinary practice. I mean, dealing with all the morale, the ups and downs. Everyone has to work together to survive. And the book, The Endurance, Shackleton also wrote his own book about it, but it goes into like just one night they're sleeping in the tent, the ice separated, somebody in their sleeping bag, which was fur,
Right.
went down, fell into the water. They grabbed him, pulled him up right as the ice closed back up, and there you couldn't even see the scene. And now somebody's cold, wet, minus 30 degrees, and trying to walk with them, keep them alive all night long. Just the anecdotes and the situations they got into through that story and Shackleton's leadership through that. And to live in that environment for 2 years when nobody knows, and for everybody from the worker bees all the way up to the scientists and the captain expedition leader. It's just such a profound story. And for those listening that know it better than I do, because I haven't read it, I've read just starting the book for a third time. I want to read the book before I put my Lego set together. I can really get in the moment
You're doing your research. That's
and,
good.
and geek out as I build a ship. And the boys got me the smaller Lego set, the Sir James Caird, which is the lifeboat that they took across.
Crazy.
I haven't told many people this, but I touched the Sir James Caird. It was at the New York Museum of Natural History, and they had some of Frank Hurley's prints and some of the artifacts from that trip, and they had brought the Sir James Caird over. I snuck across the I jumped the barrier so I could touch it. Then I jumped back.
Now
Yeah,
you're not allowed back in that museum. You should have never
I
admitted that
should
out loud.
never have mentioned that on a podcast. But it is. I think that the I think I have it on my phone. The crew that when they engaged, they had to hire everybody to I'll have to find it maybe. Um, to get everybody to come down to oh, here it is. The classified ad that they placed to hire people for the ship,
Oh my gosh.
men wanted for a hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success. Contact Ernest Shackleton, 4 Burlington Street. That was the ad.
Why would anyone sign up? Can you imagine if that were our ad trying to find people to work at vet
Trying to
clinics?
hire an employee.
You're
Constant
probably going to
danger,
get, yeah, you're
risk of bite.
probably going to get peed on. Can't mind the smell of anal glands. Might get kicked by a horse. Like, why would you list everything horrible? But yet they had a full crew.
A whole crew.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
because return doubtful, but if we do, great honor and success.
That's amazing. And then to spend 2 years. So what I get out of that story is we can't complain about our problems because we're not living on the ice for 2 years. So.
Yeah, I get all excited by it, but it's that leadership. And I mean, he was an authority figure, and certainly at that time, very top down. But in reading the text, you can kind of see it's collaborative because, these people were good with this and these people were good with this. And yes, we don't want to have to eat the dogs, but we're going to have to eat the dogs now. And, just in the situation. And I think there's, the parallels in the veterinary practice. Yes, there is a hierarchy. And there needs to be because we have different skills and those I've cleaned the cages in Dad's practice and different people know different things, but it still has to be collaborative, which we've talked about before in other situations. What's our goal? how are we all going to work together to focus on that goal?
Right.
Yeah, we have different backgrounds, different socioeconomic levels. The thing that unifies us is that goal. And granted, the goal is not survival, but the
Right.
goal is how can we work well, work smart, work hard to take care of as many pets as we can, providing that consistent standard of care based on who we want to serve. And what can we do it better?
I think it's interesting when I talk to people about leadership, um, and they're like, "Oh, well, what books do you recommend?" And it's great. You can say Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. You can say Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. There are those books out there, but nobody ever mentions books like that, that are real life. Here's what had to happen. And it was this has to happen. It's
Yeah.
not an option because either you're dead or we get to work together to get out of here. And no one's going to be like, okay, I choose death, right? So they work together. And I think that in the day-to-day life of what we do in the veterinary field, it is so easy to get caught up in the little minutia. Well, this person said that, and so now I'm not going to talk to him all day. Or, this, that's not my job. Oh, I hate when people say that's not my job. But the reality of it is, yes, there is a hierarchy, right? Like in our practice, my husband and I own the practice. We are the bosses. I put that in quotes. Because when I'm downstairs working as the technician, I'm not the boss. And my CVTs will consistently remind me of it. They're like, you're in our world now. And I'm like, fine, tell me what to do. Tell me what to do to make this go smoother. Because now I am a cog in the wheel, right? It doesn't matter if you're doing laundry, placing an IV catheter, answering the phones, doing surgery, paying the bills. You all have to be a part of it and work together so that your patients can get taken care of, your clients can get taken care of. It is not life and death. We are not eating the dogs. We better never be eating the dogs. Our job is to hopefully keep them from getting eaten, right? But, if we can't all work together, I think there are so many opportunities to learn from real life situations like that. Now we can say, okay, well, in this day and age, right, we would have had, well, I don't know how much Wi-Fi you have at the Antarctic, but,
Oh, satellite phones. And
oh, right, exactly.
it's also, what's do we lose our sense or our perspective on what's important?
Right,
He said this, she said this, and sometimes when I'm paying attention, is this really that important?
right,
I mean, I mentioned Sir Douglas Mawson. I have his diaries from or a text that contains his diaries from his exploration. And it's so matter of fact. Oh, we lost Bob today. We went back and his sledge and the dogs were gone. We just saw this big crevasse. Or the bottom of my feet froze off. I strapped them back on so I can keep moving. I mean, it's just so matter of
right.
fact. This happened. And it's not, oh, he said this or she said that or left the pen out sideways. I like it straight up and down. They did it deliberately. Or
Right.
we lose perspective.
Yeah.
I,
I think it's hard when you haven't had true adversity. I think that something in your perspective changes when you have gone through a significant trauma, a significant life-changing experience, something like that, that puts things into perspective. I've talked about the fact that my oldest child was hospitalized for suicidal tendencies. I mean, that's a time period that
yeah.
it's still, I don't want to, like, I can talk about it and things, but it was a moment. Now I am so much more chill about everything because I'm like, well, my kid's not dying, so we must be all right. I mean, it just really, really throws things into perspective. And I think it is so hard to help people see that this is not a big problem. So a client yelled at you. Okay, they're having a bad day. Like, that's on them. That should not wreck your entire day because it's not really a real problem.
Right.
Okay. And so it is a matter of, I think when we read stories like that, true to life, stories, whether it be about an exploration or, there's a lot of coach book, what is the John Wooden? Anyways, there's a bunch of books out there from football coaches or basketball coaches or whatever. Yes, they're not life and death, but there are a lot of historical books about like Lincoln. Oh man, talk about a leader. I mean, and the things that he did, surrounded himself with people who disagreed with him. You would never see that now. God forbid I be, have a president who possibly can work with somebody who disagrees with them. That's not how our world works anymore. But he did that to make himself better, and to cause adversity so that it puts things into perspective, and so I do think that there are lessons to be learned from these real situations that make us say, oh, I have a roof over my head. I have food. I have clean water. I have Wi-Fi. I have a phone. I have Legos. I'm planning my next trip to Disney. Okay, my life's pretty damn good. Like, I really don't have a lot to complain about. And it can help to switch I know that like Phil and I have talked a lot about practicing gratitude. What are we thankful for? You know what I mean? Those people were just thankful to live another day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Practicing gratitude, and it shifts. What are you grateful for? But if you're recognizing that, and we have talked about that, and Phil has a lot of insights in that. But I think there's a lot of truth to it. If you do, we're trying to help our sons do that because they don't necessarily have that outlook. But as you're going to bed or first thing in the morning, hey, what am I thankful for? And rattle off two or three. Just thinking about that helps appreciate your moment and be in the moment, I think, as well.
Yeah. And, in the background, whenever this is aired, we have fires going in California
Yeah.
right now, right? And we had hurricanes before that, and people lost their homes. They lost all their possessions. It's all gone. And in a matter of minutes,
Right.
it wasn't like you saw it coming down the street and you had time, right? It was like,
Yeah.
in 10 minutes, your life is forever changed. And so having that gratitude, like you said, I'm a firm believer of that. And also teaching the younger generation, because I'm old enough to have my grandparents be the one who went through the Great Depression and World War II, right? And all of that, and hearing their stories. But our kids, all of our kids in this room, don't have those stories. Those stories seem like something out of a textbook that have no context, right? Because they don't have your grandmother telling you, Mom, why is everybody yelling at the banks and the banks are closed? And she's like, well, that can't be. I just deposited your dad's check. We have $2.25 in the house. What do you mean? I mean, 25 cents would have bought you a really great steak dinner. So, I mean, not like today, but still, it's not much. But we don't have those moments anymore. So,
well, I think we have different moments. I think like our children, COVID is one of those moments for them.
True.
In a way that I cannot imagine not being able in middle school to talk to my friends, other than by phone. But I mean, we couldn't see each other, we couldn't hang out, we couldn't do all like that's like these social times. Their big moment, was that some of the older ones, 9/11. That was their big moment. Yes, it wasn't a world war, although it led to, a war and, but there are different moments that we are all privy to, right. I heard the stories. My grandfather fought in World War II and my dad fought in Vietnam. And, we talk about those things. And now, people join the military and they get to fly drones. It's a totally different warfare. I mean, it's like, everything has just adapted. But what was, I guess what was my adversity, right, is not this next generation's adversity, but then they have their own. that I can look at 9/11 and say, well, I was an adult when that happened. One of my team members, she never got on a plane again. She was convinced that the terrorists were going to come for her in Manchester, New Hampshire. I don't know why, but that was in her mind. She watched this and she was like, that was it. Her safety was gone. Her security was gone. And it messed with, she just got on a plane for the first time like 5 years ago because she was convinced that it was going to happen again. And because when those things happen, it messes with your head. And I think COVID is going to be that thing for these kids. That
For
was their
pockets of
adversity.
people.
Yes.
But I think throughout North America, we're very fortunate that we don't have the trauma that the rest of the world has,
That is true.
and what the other people are living in their moment and focusing on outcomes and maybe limited things to be grateful for, or what you're grateful for shifts. Just that,
Yes.
hey, we are still here
Right.
today.
Yeah, not bombing our house today,
And when you don't have something outside, external, that's focusing on your attention, then yeah, maybe the little things, he said, she said, the significance of them, because I don't have anything else to worry about.
Right.
I'm going to worry about this.
I tell my team that on a regular basis. I say, here's the thing, and it's a good and a bad problem. We don't have mountains to overcome. Like, we are very efficient. We have, everybody knows what they're doing. My team gets along really, really well. There's skirmishes, but I mean, all in all, it's a really well-run hospital. So then when they start nitpicking little stuff, I'm like, it's because you're looking for mountains to overcome. And all they are is little grass. They're not even molehills. They're like little grassy knolls. Like, that's what we have to overcome. So let's just calm down and put it into perspective. But I think that it's interesting because you were so passionate about talking about Shackleton that I wanted to talk about this, because I do think that there are so many lessons to be learned. And I can tell you that tonight I'm going to be grateful to sleep in my bed instead of outside in the cold, because Kelly and I were talking about, she's in Minnesota and I'm in New Hampshire, and it's cold right now.
Pretty
Yeah.
below wind chill. I mean, it's a
Right.
real deal, right? And
Right.
it's,
And
yeah,
And
yeah,
you're not sleeping in an elk sleeping bag that the fur's coming off on
right.
ice. I mean, seriously, we all go to the bathroom.
yeah,
All you have is ice to wipe.
yeah.
Stop.
That
I mean,
doesn't sound like
those are the
Charmin.
conditions. So
Yeah,
eating once a day. Yeah, that
So now I'm thankful for toilet paper as well.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that perspective. Be thankful for your bed, your shelter, and your toilet paper.
Yes, and
yeah.
warm food and beverages. Yes.
Right.
Well, let's wrap it up here on gratitude, right? I think that's a great piece to leave it, that all
Yeah.
of us, no matter how much we practice gratitude, we can do it more. There's always room to practice gratitude. There's always places to remind ourselves when we're just not having the day.
Mhm.
Somebody else is having a worse day, right? There's just somewhere in the world, somebody is not having your day, and it's 100 times worse. So,
David, what was the name of that book again?
Endurance, which is the name of the ship.
Got
yeah.
it.
So, yeah.
And it is a sold out Lego set, so you can't get it.
It's on back order. They are
Oh,
making more. And I
okay.
think there's a couple places that have it online. But yeah.
Good to know. Just
So
help.
with that, we will leave you all. Thank you for joining Unfiltered Vet Discussions today. And come share, like, and join us on all the social platforms. Until later, we'll see you.
We should be sponsored by Lego.
Yeah.